I'm Liz Coley. Welcome to Undercover Reading. We're in the middle of reading The Captain's Kid. We're up to Chapter 2, Part 4. I hope that you're in the same spot. The spaceport loomed high over my head. A steel and glass atrium formed the entrance. The base level was enormous, probably as large in surface area as the entire Glen Hab. Stretching up through the cloudless sky, the space elevator tapered to a point beyond my view. It stood like a 36 megameter tree trunk growing towards its tethering point at the orbital space platform, sort of a mirror image of the spaceport. That was the level where the starships were built and moored far from the tug of Earth's gravity. A captured asteroid in higher orbit anchored the very top, a counterweight above the station. Way back in the 1900s, scientists discovered the Bucky stuff that made it possible, but it wasn't until the late 2000s that engineers dared build the thing. Too worried about terrorist sabotage until all of that ended. It was enormously cooler than anything we had on Luna. The security scanner at the doors whoomed approval as I passed through. My DNA was already on file from coming down with Dad a week ago, and the sensors verified that I didn't have anything dangerous hidden in my clothes, just a stash of Band-Aids. I followed signs to the auditorium. Way down the corridor in front of me, I recognized the leggings Audrey had been wearing. She and her friend moved at an amazing pace considering that their shoes put them on tiptoes. Multicolored waist wraps fluttered out behind them like pennants. I sped up. With my XL legs, I could catch up with them. And maybe sit with them, and maybe get to know them, and maybe say something a little more intelligent. Just as I got within hailing distance, they spun off to the side and into another passageway. Blast, the bathroom. I halted, wondering how uncouth it would be to hang by the door, pretending I'd just gotten there. A disturbance at my elbow interrupted my calculations. Brendan Webb, I presume. A short guy with an earnest face tugged at my sleeve. Yes, I replied. Excellent, he said with a wide grin. I'd been hoping to locate you before the speeches begin. Captain gave me strict instructions you are not to be stranded. I hope I'm in time. His eyes were dark as space, and they told me he wasn't kidding. He stuck out his hand like Audrey had done. My hand span was twice as wide. Karthik Siravulo, he said, touching his fingertips to mine as best he could. Ah, so that's what they did. Brandon Webb, I replied. Yes, we have established that. You stand out from the crowd. His voice flowed like liquid with the same up-and-down lilt as the waiters in one of my favorite restaurants back home, the New Delhi. Are you originally from Luna too? I asked. Obviously, he hadn't grown up there, or he would have stood higher than the writing on my shirt. He laughed. That's not a question I usually hear. I blushed. It's just that, oh, never mind, stupid idea. It's just that your voice reminds me so much of someone else. His eyes took on a calculating gleam. You live near 4th Sector, Armstrong Hab. Wait, how did you know? Did my dad tell you? Karthik scratched his... Sorry. His eyes took on a calculating gleam. You live near 4th Sector, Armstrong Hab. Wait, how did you know? Did my dad tell you? Karthik scratched his chin, as if he had an invisible beard to worry at while he was thinking. Simple deduction. My Uncle Sade's restaurant is in 4th Sector, the likeliest place on Luna to hear an Indian accent outside of engineering operations. Amazing, I said. That's like my favorite restaurant. I imagine Uncle would be gratified by your enthusiasm. Come along. We can't be late for Captain's welcome or he will kill me. I snorted at the idea of Dad killing anyone. Still, we hurried into the auditorium and found a seat. I expected a crowd of about 2,000, the usual crew and family size for an interstellar resupply run. Either a lot of people were late, or this flying village was severely understaffed. I counted a quick sample and extrapolated. Only about 600 people. They were milling around, finger-tipping and laughing and slapping each other on the back. A group of kids, the space brats, were gathered in one corner having their own happy reunion, like they'd flown and grown together. I couldn't help noticing that several of them had gone past finger-tipping to hugging, Audrey included. She hung from the neck of some dark-haired guy, her shoes completely off the ground. Something growled like a beast. I hoped it came from my stomach, not my throat. Karthik tracked the direction of my gaze. Was he anxious to join them? You don't have to stick to me if there are people you'd rather hang with, I offered. Of course not, my friend. You will know all these folks better than your own family sooner than you imagine. He promised. We begin. Everyone shuffled into seats. As Dad took center stage, a new personality took over his body. His eyes were brighter, cheekbones sharper, chin squarer, muscles larger. Something. He had, what do they call it? Presence. He slapped on a lapel dot. Can everyone hear me? His voice, his command... He slapped on a lapel dot. Can everyone hear me? His command voice boomed, with or without amplification. I felt this odd stirring of pride. He's my dad, I wanted to say, but of course, Karthik already knew that. Welcome all, and let me begin by saying I can't thank you enough for agreeing to join me on this mission. It's always a pleasure to see so many friends united in purpose. Cheers broke out all around, and I wondered what he'd said that got them going. Maybe they were cheering for him having the guts to go back out there. To tell the truth, I was surprised they hadn't resupplied long ago, as soon as the failed mission first reported back. Thus far, he continued, controversy and opposition have been minimal, diplomatic hurdles have been cleared, and I'm sure we're all glad to be getting underway at last. Opposition? Hurdles? He hadn't mentioned anything like that to me. Now that even Luna was self-sufficient, maybe Earthers were getting tired of supporting the colonies. I missed the next bit while I was working this out, but I focused back in to hear Dad saying, I trust that our reception at Esperanza will be positive. And why wouldn't it be, I wondered. But then there was no way of knowing the situation on the ground till we got to the Esperanza system. Maybe the bad guys had won. Or the good guys. Or maybe peace had broken out all over. Resupplies, I knew, were scheduled every 25 years for Earth's 400-ish colonies. That maxed out the capacity of SCC's fleet of 24 starships, and no one was building new ones, just refurbishing as needed. By now, it had been 30 years for the Esperanza colonists, and with no contact in between, no technology updates, no new medicines, they should be thrilled to see us, whatever the ground situation. I was pulled back from my thoughts by Dad's voice breaking in with unexpected news. Unexpected for everyone else, perhaps. I had the inside track on this one. After launch, we'll swing into lunar orbit for 4 days to pick up special cargo. Everyone will have off-ship leave to visit your loony friends and families or play tourist. Karthik grabbed my arm. Did you hear that? Luna, he said. Excellent. Then he took note of my expression. Oh, no novelty factor for you, I suppose. Meanwhile, Dad continued, pick up your mission watch comms as you leave. Last night celebrations will commence at 1800. We have the entire elevator reserved for lift at 0700 tomorrow morning. Set your alarms. Please do not miss your ride to the starship. I elbowed Karthik. As if anyone would do that, I whispered. Dad scanned the room from left to right, top to bottom. Soft and serious, he added, again. My sincerest thanks to all of you. Consider yourselves welcomed and let the mission begin. More cheers. Such a fuss over Oops. Okay. More cheers. Such a fuss over packing up cargo crates and ferrying them light years away to another planet. Still, it was great that all these people loved their jobs, from the teachers to the chefs to the greenhouse workers to the maintenance techs. Dad had a shoulder duffel, I noticed. So he was leaving straight from here? Hey, Karthik, you don't mind if I go see Dad now, do you? He's lifting today. Sure thing. Let's pick up our mission comms, exchange digits, and you can message me when you're done. Why special mission watch comms, I asked. Can't they just upload whatever we need onto ours? It's a security thing, Karthik explained. They employ a different standard on board. As soon as we'd picked up our new higher-tech watch comms, Karthik left to join the other space brats. I watched with envy as they greeted him like an old friend, which, of course, he was. I tapped on the comm, activated the virtual keyboard, and typed on the transparent keys floating above my forearm. Dad, don't leave without me. Coming to see you off. Then I changed the generic password to my usual webman with a different 4-digit sequence from Pi and stowed the V-board with a wrist flick. I messed around with the new interface and new features while I waited for Dad. As soon as Dad broke loose from the crowd, we headed down the kilometer corridor from the hospitality facilities to the elevator base. His brow was furrowed like he was raking something over in his mind. "You didn't have to come with me," he said. "You could have stayed with the kids." "I wanted to see you off. Sorry, I don't mean to be a bother." Dad frowned. "You're never a bother, kiddo." After 10 steps in silence, I added, "I met Karthik. He seems like a great guy." He hummed with satisfaction. "Told you." I found myself at a loss for words. Stupid, because it wasn't like Dad was launching for years. I'd see him tomorrow afternoon, maybe even in time for lunch. But something quirked in my stomach anyway. At the security checkpoint, we swiped our fingers for DNA match, and Dad's shoulder bag was scanned and sniffed. Check and double check. So many old habits were left over from the century of terrorism. In moments, the all-clear whoom sounded, and we passed into the waiting area, a huge circular room which ringed the 12 lift trains. 6 were configured for cargo, and 6 for passengers, 100 seats per train. After boarding, I knew the trains would slide into their vertical positions. Then the electromagnets would power up, and the trains would unclamp and begin their frictionless ascent, thanks to maglev, for the next 6 hours. It was best to start with an empty bladder. As we claimed a pair of seats on the edge of the passenger waiting area, I noticed a maintenance crew moving huge blue cargo crates over to the freight side of the elevator. Undoubtedly, most of our supplies. "Reliable" was stamped on them in large white letters. "Dad, how come our ship has such a boring name?" I asked. "Why isn't she the Dauntless or the Intrepid or something inspiring like that?" Dad raised his left eyebrow an inch, a trick I had yet to master. "In deep space, it's much more important to be reliable than anything else. Don't you agree?" "I see your point," I conceded. "Reliability is an underrated virtue in my book," Dad said in his, "oh no, here comes a lecture voice. It suggests a collection of attributes, a certain steadiness and integrity, a sense of security and well-being, an invisible excellence you can count on without looking for it. I like it. In fact, I chose it." "Oh, great name," I said. Who named me, you or Mom?" Oops. Fortunately, Dad smiled. "Your mother, of course. She vetoed my suggestion of Wilson." "Wilson Webb, Dad? You've got to be kidding." "She didn't like Warren either." "Thank goodness." The countdown clock over one of the trains was close to 0, and Dad stood up with a sigh. "Guess this is it," he said. I gave him a quick, awkward hug and watched him join a handful of passengers in the boarding line. They wore maintenance work suits, probably OSP personnel heading up for their weekly shift. I watched until the train loaded and slid into lift position. I knew the seats inside were gimbaled to rotate with gravity into a comfortable position for the passengers, and at flip over, halfway along, they would reorient for deceleration and arrival. As the train lifted through the open roof, I waved. Stupid, since he couldn't even see me. Still, something in my stomach told me I should have gone with him. That's the end of that section. Come back again for the next part of Chapter 2. Thank you.